Naruto and his team scrunched up their noses in disgust. The bridge builder, Tazuna from the land of waves, reeked of booze. And the worst part? They were going to be traveling with him for the next few days as part of their first C-rank mission. To top it off, the man clearly didn't trust a bunch of kids to protect him. "I can assure you, Tazuna, my students are more than capable of protecting you from bandits," Kakashi said, trying to calm the man down. "And I can assure you that my Jonin's words are true," Hiruzen added from behind his and Iruka's mission desk. "And unless you can afford a higher rank mission, you'll have to make do." A bead of sweat crawled down the man's face before he grunted in acceptance and stormed out. Kakashi scratched his head, turning to the genin. "Meet me at the gate in 30 minutes. Once everything is set, we'll head off," he declared, vanishing in a swirl of leaves. The genin left shortly after, leaving Iruka and Hiruzen. "Are you sure it's a good idea to send them on a C-rank mission so soon?" Iruka asked. "These genin are some of the finest the village has seen. I have confidence they'll perform well," the Hokage replied. Naruto packed light, partially thanks to the storage scroll he owned, but mostly due to him not having much to pack. All he had was spare tools and an extra set of clothes. He was going to bring his book, filled with various ninjutsu ideas, but opted not to. If Sasuke or Sakura saw it, they might start asking questions, which he wanted to avoid for as long as possible. He finished packing and dashed to the gate, arriving just after the others. Without a word to the ninja, Tazuna started down the dirt path leading to his home, grumbling all the while. Kakashi made a simple gesture with his hand, signaling for the genin to move into formation around Tazuna. Kakashi took the back, Naruto and Sakura took the sides, and Sasuke took the front. The trip was long and silent, except for Tazuna's many drunken remarks. Naruto's bored gaze finally found something interesting, a single puddle of blue water on the side of the path. He paused to look at it, making the others come to a halt as well. "The hell are you staring at, brat?" Tazuna muttered. Sasuke looked at the puddle, his shinobi senses going off for an unknown reason. "Kakashi-sensei, when did it last rain?" the Uchiha asked, hand hovering over his kunai. "About a week ago, I believe," the Jonin answered, not once looking up from his book. Before anyone could react from his statement, Naruto was thrown against a tree on the opposite side of the path. The puddle was gone, replaced with two shinobi in dark cloaks. Large metal gauntlets covered their arms, a mask accompanied by their headbands, which had the symbol for the hidden mist village. Naruto looked up just in time to see them wrap large, spiked chains around Kakashi's body. The mist ninja yanked the two ends of the chain in opposite directions, the blades tearing into Kakashi's body, ripping him to shreds of flesh and blood. Instantly, Naruto's mind went crazy, dozens of thoughts consuming him, the two biggest being that Kakashi couldn't be dead, and if he actually was, it was up to them to stop these ninja. Sasuke was already kicking away the mist ninja as they charged for Tazuna, who'd become frozen with fear alongside Sakura. Naruto forced himself to move as well, using soul speed to launch him into one of them. "You little brat!" they shouted, punching Naruto in the gut. Naruto gasped for air, shakily drawing a kunai as he jumped beside Sasuke. The Uchiha's face was stone cold, making the blonde wonder how he could stay so calm, but he pushed the thought away for the time being. "Can you handle the other one by yourself?" Naruto asked. Sasuke scoffed. That was all Naruto needed from him, strangely making his own fear subside. The enemies charged, their clawed hands reaching out to tear them apart. Naruto threw his kunai, coating it with wind chakra. The blade was blocked, causing a mini explosion of wind, knocking the enemy off balance. Naruto smirked internally. By intentionally coating his kunai with an imbalanced amount of chakra, it would go crazy if it made contact with another surface. An easy trick to pull off for him. Naruto barreled into the enemy, silently planting an explosive seal onto his back before using soul speed to jump away. It went off, giving Naruto the time he needed to ready a jutsu. Wind style! Great breakthrough! The strong gust of wind sent the man flying into a tree. If it wasn't for his gauntlet to break his flight, he would have been knocked unconscious. Naruto ran as fast as he could, bringing both fists down on the mist ninja's head, knocking him out. He looked over to see Sasuke using the other man's spiked chain to keep him tied against the tree. Sakura was still beside Tazuna. The latter slumped onto his knees, both with eyes of fear. That went about as well as I expected. Everyone whipped around to Kakashi, lifting Tazuna up with one hand, alive and without so much as a scratch. Sakura let out a frightened gasp, almost tripping on her own feet. Naruto's eyes widened as he composed himself quickly, while Sasuke seemed unfazed. Kakashi nonchalantly walked past the two boys, giving them a tap on the shoulder for a job well done. These two are the Demon Brothers, a pair of well-known mist-tuning who defected from their village. You did good to take them out. As for Sakura, well, you didn't do much, but you stayed behind with our employer, so that's a plus. He turned back to Tazuna. Speaking of our employer, it would seem our bridge builder wasn't telling the truth about the mission ranking. No wonder he didn't want a bunch of kids guarding him. Naruto shivered, looking at the discarded tuning. These two alone would elevate this mission from a C rank to a B rank, and if my suspicions turn out to be correct, it may become an A rank, maybe even S rank, Kakashi muttered, making sure to emphasize how bad that was. Sakura and Naruto gulped, while Sasuke's eyes narrowed. S rank was the most dangerous of missions carried out only by Jonin. If this mission really did turn out to be that dangerous, there was little chance all of them would return to the village alive. It appears we are at an impasse, Kakashi declared, turning to Tazuna. Listen very carefully, bridge builder. Not only did you lie about the mission ranking, but you put my students at risk. We can just as easily leave you to fend for yourself. Luckily, I'm a reasonable guy, and I might decide to help you. Don't get your hopes up though, so start spilling. Tazuna's body was shivering. Kakashi's one eye bore into his very soul. He didn't have a choice. If there was even a small chance of keeping him and the kids around, he had to take it. They were better than no security. He'd worry about the consequences afterwards. And so, he told them everything. A wealthy, exploiting man named Gato had been running his home ragged, taking all the money they had away. He was traveling back in order to construct a bridge that would connect them with a series of other island towns, giving them access to much-needed trade. So, Gato hired these ex-Mist Ninja in order to kill Tazuna and prevent the bridge from being built? Sakura asked. Definitely, and if he hired these two, odds are he's hired other ex-Mist Ninja. Kakashi frowned from behind his mask. Are there a lot of rogue Mist Ninja? Naruto asked. Right now there is, considering the recent attempt by many of them to kill their leader, the Mizukage. It failed, and those who were a part of the attempt ended up scattered, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to make some cash in order to try again. That's why Gato hired them, Kakashi explained. Tazuna gulped, wondering how the ninja will respond now that they knew the truth. Luckily, he didn't have to wait long. What are we waiting for then? Naruto questioned, making everyone turn to him. I have no desire to go back to the village and get stuck with D-rank missions again. And if there are more ninja after us, we should get moving right away. But he didn't pay enough for our protection, Sakura pointed out. Shouldn't we just go back to the village? She insisted. Her nervousness gained the best of her. And leave him and his people to suffer? Naruto snarled at the girl, making her jump. I don't know about you, Sakura, but I'd never be able to live with myself if I ignored someone who needs help. Kakashi sort of expected that reaction from the blonde, considering his own experience. Sasuke shrugged in acceptance. The Jonin assumed he wanted the chance to fight other shinobi, so he was willing to continue the mission. He was unbiased, and Sakura would be against the idea, so the majority went to help Tazuna. They set off once more, their senses alert. Naruto's above all. What he'd said to Sakura was true. He would never forgive himself if Tazuna failed his mission, because they refused to help. His entire village was being oppressed. He couldn't ignore that, no matter how dangerous it might be. They didn't have to wait long. Kakashi sensed it before all of them, pulling Tazuna and Sakura down with him as the other two did the same. A massive sword flew above their heads at high speeds, burying itself deep into a nearby tree. No one moved, until a figure appeared out of nowhere, standing atop the sword's handle. His darker skin contrasted the white bandages that covered his face. He was shirtless, showing off his highly defined abs. His baggy pants stopped just above the ankles. His arms covered with what appeared to be cowhide, or at the very least cow printing. Well, I missed. I guess you'll have to die painfully now. Kakashi rose to his feet. Zabuza Momochi. Once the demon brothers showed up, I knew you were going to follow. The man, now known as Zabuza, chuckled to himself, sending a chill down the Genin's spines. Kakashi the copy ninja. No wonder I missed. Once I'm done with the bridge builder, I'll make sure to collect the bounty on your head. Kakashi remained silent, glancing back to the others. Tazuna was still on the ground, huddled into a ball from pure fear. Sakura was kneeling beside him, limply holding a kunai. Sasuke was back to his feet, trying desperately to hide his own fear. Naruto was slowly rising, never once taking his eyes off Zabuza. Students, your job is to protect the bridge builder. Stay out of this fight. I will handle this. You think we're just gonna sit back and watch? Sasuke seethed. Zabuza is an S-rank rogue ninja. He is referred to as the Demon of the Mist, and a master of the silent killing technique. He was the one who almost killed the Mizukage, meaning his power rivals my own. If you tried attacking him, you'd be dead before taking a single step. He's out of your league, the Jonin stated firmly, leaving no room to argue. Sasuke frowned. He didn't have a choice. He had to stay out of the fight. He wasn't dumb enough to ignore such a warning from Kakashi, no matter how much it infuriated him. He glanced down at his hands. They were trembling. They hadn't done that since the night of the massacre. Just the thought made his rage increase. If he couldn't fight, he wouldn't become stronger. If you go in there, you'll die. Sasuke turned to Naruto, who was still staring at Zabuza. The normal shine in his ocean blue eyes was gone, replaced with a cold emptiness. It was unnerving to the Uchiha, and he couldn't explain why, nor could he explain why Naruto was acting so calm. Against the Demon Brothers, he'd been the one who remained calm, not the Uzumaki. Naruto couldn't explain it to himself either. His heart was racing, but not out of fear like he expected. How could he not be afraid? Just Zabuza's presence alone would send a normal person running, so why didn't it affect him to the same extent as Sasuke, or even Sakura? Is it because of that nightmare maybe? He asked himself, flashing back to the sight of the fox within its cage from a few days ago. He pushed it out of his mind, glancing at Sasuke for a fraction of a second. We can't help Kakashi-sensei, so we should watch and learn as much as possible, Naruto said. Eyes refocused on Zabuza, who dropped to the ground, sword in hand. Sasuke cursed under his breath, knowing the blonde was right. He jumped back beside Tazuna and Sakura, Naruto doing the same. Kakashi gave a silent nod of relief, turning back to his opponent. The name of my sword is the Executioner's Blade, Zabuza smirked under his bandages. It's been a while since he's taken someone's head off. Kakashi didn't reply, reaching for two kunai. He held them in reverse grip, his one eye never wavering as Zabuza hoisted his sword over his shoulder. All was silent for what seemed to be an eternity. Without warning, the two shinobi vanished from view. The only thing the Genin saw were sparks created by metal clashing against the metal. Both reappeared at their starting positions, sporting a tiny cut on their cheeks. You're as fast as they say, Zabuza praised, placing his sword on his back. Let's see how you handle this. Two identical copies of Zabuza appeared on either side of Kakashi. The Jonin remained perfectly calm, never taking his eye off the real Zabuza. His kunai flew from his hands, bouncing off the rogue's sword. But before the two clones could react, a spike made of stone erupted from the ground beneath them, stabbing through the bottom of their jaw, coming out of the top of their head. Both clones stood frozen before suddenly dissolving into water, which fell to the ground with a splash. Zabuza was left surprised. He'd barely even seen Kakashi perform hand signs. his hands little more than blurs. He truly did live up to his reputation. The man drew his sword once again, ready for another bout of taijutsu. Kakashi didn't disappoint, the two attacking so fast that Genin couldn't see a single clash. So, this is the power of a Jonin, Naruto whispered, loud enough for the others to hear. He glanced over to Sasuke, whose hands were clenched into fists. He was trembling, with a mixture of awe and rage. Naruto could understand. He was also in awe, with a hint of rage filling him since he was unable to follow his sensei's movements. He'd been hoping to see Kakashi use some ninjutsu he could try to learn. The two reappeared, standing on a nearby lake, ripples spreading across the water. Both were breathing harder than before. Zabuza sheathed his sword once again, weaving a set of hand signs. Kakashi's eye narrowed, a thick layer of mist descending upon him and his squad. He immediately lost track of Zabuza's chakra signature, making him turn in his student's direction. He couldn't see through the mist, but he could smell the three of them. Tazuna's overwhelming stench of booze, making it troublesome to track them. If Zabuza's bingo book entry is true, he likely plans to kill his target while the hidden mist jutsu is active. Sure enough, he smelled Zabuza the moment he landed in between his students that were surrounding Tazuna. The man had his sword raised, ready to decapitate the bridge builder. The Genin registered his presence, but none of them were fast enough to react, all except Kakashi. The Jonin ran through hand signs, slamming his hands on the ground. Earth style, flying stones. The ground directly beneath Zabuza broke into dozens of stone shards which flew up, forcing Zabuza to dodge and jump away. Kakashi was on top of him before he landed, throwing a kick. The rogue used his sword to block, launching him back. More taijutsu, combined with a few shuriken, commenced. They ended up back in the lake, more scratches covering their bodies. You're stronger than expected, Zabuza said, sheathing his sword once more. Not too bad yourself, Kakashi frowned beneath his mask. Now, how about I get serious? Kakashi reached for the side of his headband that covered his left eye. He lifted it, revealing a scar along his now exposed eye. But the eye itself is what shocked his students. Is that? Sakura trailed off. The eyes of the Uchiha, Naruto finished in a whisper. The Sharingan. The eye was unlike any other, a powerful blood red, with 3 black tomo markings that spun around the pupil. His eyes immediately darted to Sasuke, seeing the exact expression he expected on the Uchiha's face. Confusion, overshadowed with boiling rage. Luckily, his emotions froze him in place, keeping him out of Kakashi's way. But he couldn't even try to understand what Sasuke was experiencing. The Sharingan was a Keke Genkai, possessed only by the Uchiha clan, who Sasuke was the last member of. To find out his teacher had one implanted had to be a lot to take in. Hold on, that's why Kakashi Sensei is known as the Copy Ninja. The Sharingan can copy ninjutsu, Naruto realized as Kakashi and Zabuza started running through hand signs. Water style, water dragon jutsu. Both ninja unleashed a mass of water in the shape of a dragon's head at one another, the attacks canceling each other out. Zabuza was left in shock, unable to understand how his enemy had performed the same technique at the exact same time. He weaved more hand signs, his shock increasing as Kakashi had already completed the jutsu. Water style, liquid bullets. He was barely able to block the projectiles with the executioner's blade. It was as Kakashi appeared behind him, kunai in hand, that he realized how the copy ninja had beaten him in forming the hand signs. The Sharingan. He whipped around, blocking Kakashi's kunai. So, before you simply copied me, but this time you acted faster than me. Kakashi blinked, dodging another slash before diving into the water. Seconds later, 3 versions of him appeared from beneath the surface. Zabuza watched carefully as they circled him, trying to determine the real one. All of them were fake. That he was certain of. What are you planning? Zabuza muttered as the clones dashed forward. He ducked under the first fist, punching the clone, making it burst into water. He swept the legs out from under the second clone, slashing the face of the third, before planting his foot in the downed clone. His senses kicked in, making him jump off the lake as its surface was coated with electricity. The yellow energy fizzled out as he landed a few feet away from his target and Kakashi's students. He decided to try and kill them once again. Perhaps that would rile up his opponent and force him to go all out. However, he was prevented from getting near them as the rumbling sound of rushing water filled his ears. Water style. Giant vortex jutsu! The massive wave barreled into Zabuza, throwing him through several trees, pain rippling through his body. At last, the wave subsided, leaving him sprawled against a tree, a path of destruction in front of him. He was panting heavily as Kakashi walked towards him, kunai in hand. It's been enjoyable, Zabuza Momochi, but it's time for you to die. Zabuza snorted. As if, without moving his head, Kakashi sidestepped, stabbing his blade through the neck of Zabuza's clone. Nice try. What made you think that was my only plan? The Zabuza in front of him burst into water, Kakashi's eyes widening. He twisted, throwing a shuriken with all his might. The projectile flew above Tazuna, who Zabuza was standing over, the force behind it making his sword bounce back. His genin were still in shock as Kakashi landed a punch squarely in Zabuza's face. He skidded across the ground, smirking beneath his bandages. Kakashi looked down, an explosive tag wrapped around his arm. His students watched their teacher disappear from view, the sound of an explosion heard several meters away. Zabuza sighed. Let's hope that was the end of... He glanced in the direction of the explosion, his eyes narrowing. I guess not. Lightning style. Scattershot! Needles of electricity appeared in the sky, forcing Zabuza to run sporadically. But to Kakashi, it wasn't sporadic, but exactly how he wanted Zabuza to move. The man ended in the exact location he wanted him to be, atop an explosive tag of his own. It went off, catching Zabuza within it. The man was thrown into the lake, scorch burns covering his body. The bandages around his face moments away from unraveling. He wasn't even able to move his sword. That's all it took? Sakura asked in a hoarse whisper. That's all it took to beat him? Like the old saying goes, Naruto whispered back. Even a single kunai can kill a Kage. There's actually more to that saying, Kakashi called out. The full saying is, even a single kunai can kill a Kage, but only when used by another Kage. Zabuza is merely faking his injuries in order to get me closer. Zabuza chuckled. I guess you found me out. The man undid the transformation jutsu, only a few cuts along his body. Kakashi frowned beneath his mask, his Sharingan spinning as Zabuza readied his sword once again. More taijutsu? Naruto wondered aloud. Both he and Sasuke disappointed they'd been unable to see hand signs for the jutsu that had been used. Water style, liquid bullets! Kakashi launched more spheres of water, Zabuza slashing each one with his sword with ease. He lunged forward, Kakashi dodging and jumping over his attacks. He threw a pair of explosive kunai, blocking Zabuza's vision with the explosion. He appeared behind him, fist ready to deliver the finishing blow. Zabuza had other plans, spinning around to face Kakashi dead on, much to his shock. The smoke from his explosion worked against him, Zabuza using it to hide his hand signs. Water style. Water prison jutsu. The water beneath them rose, forming into a sphere that swallowed Kakashi. Zabuza's one arm remained inside the sphere, holding it together with his chakra. Kakashi barely managed to get in a breath before the liquid engulfed him. Normally, he could last underwater for half an hour, but without a proper breath, he'd only last around 5 minutes. Zabuza smirked under his bandages. Now that you are taken care of, my clones can deal with my target, and your students. Kakashi looked on with worry and rage as 2 clones formed beside Zabuza, both dashing towards his group. Sasuke acted first, his desire to get answers from Kakashi about his Sharingan motivating him. He ran through hand signs, releasing a ball of orange fire from his mouth. The sudden attack managed to take out one of the clones, much to the original's surprise. They were all frozen with fear moments ago, Zabuza mused. My clones are only a tenth of my real power, but no measly genin should be good enough to destroy them so easily. Then again, these kids are students of the copy ninja, so they're likely stronger than average. Sasuke ran forward to attack the second clone, but he was knocked away with the flat side of the executioner's blade before he knew what hit him. Stay with Tazuna, Naruto shouted to Sakura, waking her from her fear and shock just in time to see the blonde lunge forward. If Sasuke can't defeat it, what makes Naruto think he can? She thought to herself as she forced her body to move in front of Tazuna. Naruto had a plan, and only one chance to make it work. First, he needed to get rid of the clone. He drew a kunai and 2 shuriken, hiding the former in his sleeve as he coated it with water chakra. He threw the shuriken, one flying to either side of Zabuza. He then threw the kunai straight at his enemy. Since there was a shuriken on either side of him, the clone raised his sword to block the kunai. Naruto smirked. The clone acted exactly the way he wanted. The kunai made contact with the clone's sword, the water chakra coating the blade, distributing itself through the clone's body. A second later, the clone suddenly flopped to the ground, the water making it up, splashing harmlessly onto the ground. Yes, it worked! Naruto shouted, unable to contain his excitement, even in such a dangerous situation. As everyone watched in bewilderment, Kakashi was the only one to realize what had happened. His Sharingan had been able to see the water chakra coating the kunai, and how it had flowed into the clone. Although the clone and the chakra coating his kunai are both made of water chakra, they each have a different chakra signature, as they originate from 2 separate people. Those signatures collided with one another, forcing the clone to disperse. Amazing. I've never seen different chakra signatures used in such a way before, Kakashi admitted. Ninja don't normally know the difference between chakra signatures until they become Chunin, and even then, they only use it for sensory purposes. Using it in combat is extremely rare, and only necessary when 2 ninja perform combination ninjutsu, a difficult skill to learn in its own right. Did Naruto know about this? Or was it a fluke? He'd have to ask about it later if he managed to escape the prison Zabuza held him in. He looked over to Sasuke, who was back on his feet, reaching into his bag. The Uchiha glanced at Naruto, the two nodding. Sasuke retrieved a foldable Fuma Shuriken, throwing it to Naruto. The blonde caught it, spinning it around his hand. He started adding wind chakra, the shuriken gaining more and more speed until it was nothing but a dark blur. Sasuke ran at Zabuza, throwing a handful of kunai. Despite having to keep his hand connected to the water prison, Zabuza managed to block or jump over the kunai. The Uchiha stopped his advance, Naruto running past him, throwing the wind-powered Fuma Shuriken. Zabuza rolled his eyes. Admittedly, the projectile was fast, for a genin, but still easy to avoid. He simply lifted his legs, the Fuma Shuriken flying directly beneath him. That decision would cost him. The 2 kunai he jumped over earlier transformed into clones of Sasuke. One managed to pluck the spinning Fuma Shuriken from midair, twisting to throw it back towards Zabuza. The second clone released a fireball which collided with the shuriken, turning it into a bright orange blur. Zabuza realized where Sasuke was aiming as his clones burst. Zabuza was forced to pull his hand away from the water prison, otherwise he'd have lost an arm. The sphere of water collapsed instantly, Kakashi choking and taking in deep breaths as Zabuza backflipped away. The flaming Fuma Shuriken skidded across the lake's surface, creating a wall of steam as it came to Naruto and Sasuke's feet. The steam blocked their view, but they could still hear the clashes between their sensei and the rogue. The sound of an explosion was heard, followed shortly by a shower of water droplets. The steam dissipated, revealing the 2 Jonin locked in a power struggle, Kakashi on the losing end. Zabuza's smirk could be seen behind his bandages. "Don't get cocky yet, Momochi," Kakashi warned, twisting Zabuza's hand. The man growled as Kakashi forced his fist to perform hand signs. Once they completed, he was kicked in the chin, Naruto using him as a springboard to get air. Earth style, Garden of Stone! Spikes erupted from the ground directly under Zabuza. After the kick to the chin, he was dazed, unable to dodge, resulting and the dozens of spikes to stab through his body. Large holes covered his torso, filled with stone spikes. His grip on his sword was still firm, but anyone could tell he was in incredible pain from the blood that was soaking through the bandages on his face. Kakashi landed, falling to one knee. He immediately pulled his headband back over his Sharingan. His limit reached. This time, Zabuza was done. His chakra was getting low, and his strength was too diminished to break free from the spikes. Even if he did, he would bleed to death from the many holes along his body. "It's over," Kakashi called to his students. "Zabuza has been incapacitated." The Genin and Tazuna let out a collective sigh of relief. Their enemy slowly raised his head, coughing up more blood. "You think this is over? Ha! I'm going to kill that bridge builder and get my money. Even you, the copy ninja, cannot stop." His sentence was cut short, 2 senbon needles appearing in his neck. His eyes rolled back into his skull, the executioner's blade falling from his grip with a loud bang. All except Kakashi were stunned as a new figure appeared from the trees. The figure wore a green haori with white trimming, a light brown sash, large striped shorts and sandals. Their dark hair was tied up in a white bun holder, locks framing their face, held together with metal hair cuffs. Their face was covered with a white mask, with red markings, as well as the hidden mist symbol at the top. "You're a hunter, shinobi," Kakashi stated, noting the mask. "I am. I've been tracking this man for some time now. Your battle drew my attention." The hunter gave a slight bow. "I thank you for weakening him and giving me the chance to eliminate him." "Hunter ninja," Sasuke whispered. "I've read about them," Sakura chimed in. "They travel out of their villages in order to capture rogue shinobi." The hunter knelt to pick up Zabuza's body as the spikes receded into the ground. "I shall be on my way. Apologies for the inconvenience." Hunters normally burn the corpses of their targets immediately upon retrieval, Kakashi replied nonchalantly. "He is an exception, for reasons I'm sure you're aware of," the hunter answered. "His actions against the Mizukage," Kakashi said. The hunter ninja nodded. "I'll be off," they replied, as they hoisted the executioner's blade onto their back, vanishing in smoke. Kakashi looked off into the distance as the smoke dissipated. He finally let the fatigue take effect, dropping to his knees. Sakura and Sasuke ran up to help him stand, while Naruto lifted Tazuna. "Are you alright, Sensei?" Sakura asked. Kakashi gave an eye smile. "I'll be fine. The use of the Sharingan drains a lot of my energy. I can only use it for short bursts. But this fight will put me out of commission for 2 or 3 days. Well, now that Zabuza is taken care of, you'll have time to rest," Sasuke said, his eyes hardening. "But you owe me an explanation first." Kakashi glanced down at the Uchiha. He was going to have to explain his Sharingan sooner or later. That he'd known ever since becoming a sensei. "Don't worry, I will. However, there is one problem." Kakashi looked to his students, a grim expression in his eye. "Zabuza Momochi is still alive." If you like what you just heard, consider hitting the subscribe button and bell icon to get notified about new videos. If there's a part you've missed, then check out the entire playlist on screen. If you like this story, please share it with your fellow anime lovers. Any support helps a lot. That's all for now. This is Ninja Kai, disappearing in a golden flash.